Maybe I will first open this document, maybe.
I think we are in the webinar already.
And 1 second. Oh,
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are in the webinar. Okay.
yes, I found it. So to share, I guess.
Then we
So
start.
it is. Yes, it is. Okay. I will stop sharing now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we can start, right? Okay, hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. First of all, we would like to express our gratitude to our honorable guests and NIP patriots from all over the world. As we know, this 26th of April is the day full of events. So we really appreciate your participation and thank you for sparing your precious time to join us. So we are happy to start this first webinar, What is National Implementation Plan, Part 1, which as you understand is one of the 20 webinars to be conducted in the upcoming 2 years. It's an introductory webinar. Second webinar will be held in the second half of May when everyone is back home from the COP, BRS COP. And before we start, let me briefly share some details of our program. You might have received a notice from your regional centers or focal points that we invited countries to share their experiences and speak in the webinar. And today we are happy to have our honorable guest speakers from the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Agriculture of Georgia, Ms. Anna Berjani, and Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry of Kenya, Mr. Cyrus Majari. And it's an honor for us to have you today, and we believe that it will inspire other countries to share and to volunteer. And despite that webinars are just for knowledge sharing, we strive to provide you with the space for peer learning as well. So every country may volunteer to share in our next webinar in May. And finally, we are pleased to have our speakers from BRS Secretariat, Mr. Suman Sharma, and United Nations Environment Program, Ms. Mihaela Claudia Pan, and Ms. Melanie Ashton from GGKP and Yovita as well. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time and contribution. Just a quick note, we have wonderful interpreters working today to interpret into Spanish and French. We deeply apologize for not being able to ensure Russian interpretation this time, as the interpreters from the side of our regional partners were not available. We will make sure that Russian interpreters are with us from the next webinar in May, and the webinar will be recorded. It will be 90 minutes, 1.5 hours, and further uploaded to our knowledge platform and Green Forum. I believe you remember it from our presentation in Global Inception meeting. So we will share the links in the chat for your reference soon. And we will have several Q&A sessions. So please feel free to introduce yourself, say hello to your NIP colleagues all over the world. And finally, I'm pleased to give the floor to Project Coordinator of Component 4, Ms. Melanie Ashton, for opening remarks. Floor is yours, Melanie.
Thank you, Anastasia, and I won't take too much of everyone's time. That was a brilliant introduction, Anastasia, but really I'm just here to say good morning or good afternoon, and thanks so much to everyone for participating. This is what, as Anastasia mentioned, the first in a webinar series. This is a real opportunity for countries to come together. Global Component 4, the component that we're responsible for at GGKP, is about sharing and generating knowledge. And these webinars provide a key medium for bringing people together and sharing and learning from each other. And 20 webinars sounds like a lot. So it sounds like we're going to get to know each other quite well over the next few years. So please do take the time to introduce yourself in the chat. Be active, don't be shy. We're all nice. We're here to learn. And we're very, very happy to get to know you. I'm very pleased to see that online already we have 60 participants. That's brilliant. That means we've got a couple of you from each country. And on that note, all of the webinars are open to not only the national focal points, but also national stakeholders, members of your national steering committees or coordinating committees for the NIP update. So please do remember to share the NIP update webinar information is far and wide. And with that, I'll leave it there and hand you back to Anastasia and wish you a good meeting. Thanks, Anastasia.
Thank you very much, Melanie, for your kind words. We are really excited to open the webinar and give the floor to Mr. Suman Sharma, Program Management Officer from BRS Secretariat, who will speak on behalf of the Stockholm Convention. And just remind all of us about the obligations under the convention, including Article 7, Article 15, and any information or updates that could be useful for our countries to know as we start. Floor is yours, Suman.
Thank you very much. Do you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Okay, great.
Perfect.
Thank you very much for inviting me and giving this opportunity to participate in this webinar. And my name is, as Anastasia introduced, my name is Suman Sharma, and I work in the BRS Secretariat. And one of the area of my working is relating to NIP, National Implementation Plan, that the parties prepare and they submit it to the Secretariat, and we make it available for the parties, and we post it in the website, and we also present it to the parties during the COPs. And also I'm responsible also to develop the technical assistance program under the Stockholm Convention. So that's basically my role. And since Melanie and Anastasia asked me to introduce about the National Implementation Plan and reporting, so I quickly just put a few slides here. I'm sure you all know about it. I don't really need to elaborate it, but then I will do it anyways. So Stockholm Convention, which was established by parties to protect human health and the environment from persistent organic pollutants. And in order to implement the obligations under this convention, parties are required to prepare the National Implementation Plan and implement that plan and report it to the parties what they have implemented. And if needed, they update it, they review it, they update it as the mandate, they keep getting more mandates, new chemicals are listed in the convention, and they have to review their current NIP and update it to address the new obligations that comes in. So the Article 7 is about the National Implementation Plan. It is about the implementation plan, since all the parties are required to prepare the plans. That's why we call it National Implementation Plan, or NIP. So there are basically three things under this article. One is about the development of NIP and transmit such NIP within 2 years to the conference of the parties, and review and update it as needed. So this is the paragraph 1 of the Article 7, and paragraph 2 is more about cooperation and coordination, how such plans should be developed, who should be included, who should be consulted while developing such a plan in the country, and what should be the focus. So this is more about what aspects should not be missed out while developing the National Implementation Plan. And the third paragraph is about this National Implementation Plan should not be another single document, standalone document that stays in the shelf of the ministry. It should be the part of the sustainable development strategy, the whole environment. If the country is is developing the sustainable development strategy, is implementing environmental program. So this NIP, along with other things, because while preparing NIP, the NIP should also take into account of what is needed for the sustainable development of that country. So, no matter it is Basel Convention, Rotterdam Convention, Climate Change Convention, whatever that are relevant while implementing the Stockholm Convention are all, are consulted, analyzed, and all synergized. So this is a very important document which also takes care of other effort that the country should be, is taking and implementing their mandate. And why it is important to prepare NAP? It is a very simple, improve understanding of the national situation with respect to the PUPs, and establish the inventory. What are the sources and what is the amount, and whether or not there are any impacts to the health of people, and in the development access, what are the regulatory environment currently, and what are the mechanism of how they where it needs to have more work to be done, whether they need more standards, they need more regulations, more is implementing framework. So these and assess the capacity, whether the government, whether the private sector, whether the implementing agencies do have that capacity to manage and dispose of the waste containing PUPs, stockpiles of the PUPs, and strengthening the capacity of convention focal points. So for this reason, one needs to prepare the national implementation plan. And what resources are available? There are two kinds of resources: technical resources like guidance document. There are ample guidance document on inventories of all the PUPs, how to identify, quantify the various PUPs in the country, and regulatory, import, export, testing, screening, socioeconomic, all sort of guidances are there, and they are available in the convention's website. And there are e-learning courses also developed, and also they are in the convention website. And there is, as I mentioned earlier, there is all the NIPs that have been transmitted by the parties have all been posted in the website. So there is a NIP transmission database is available, and there are COP decisions relating to NIP, and they are also available in the website. And there is a financial resources also available for the eligible parties. The financial mechanism under the convention is providing funding for parties, eligible parties to develop their NIP, update their NIP, and also implement the projects relating to the Stockholm Convention. On Article 15, this is about the reporting, what they have done, what they have implemented over the time. So Article 15 reporting is done once every 4 years. So each party, according to the mandate of the Article 15, that each party shall report to the COP on the measures to implement the provision of the convention and its effectiveness of such measure in meeting the objective of convention. So this is asking parties to report what they did and how successful they had been in doing that. And parties also are requested to provide the quantity of production, import, export of the chemical listed in Annex A and B, meaning those PUPs, and their reasonable estimate. And also, to the extent practical, a list of state from where it was imported and the state where it was exported. So that information also needed to be provided under this reporting. And such reporting shall be done periodical. As I said, it's done every 4 years. So it was decided on the first COP. What we do, why it is important to make Article 15 reporting, it is to understand what measure the party has taken to implement their convention. And this may be a good example for other parties who are struggling how to do this, how to implement this. When they see that how it has been implemented by others, then they will do it they can follow suit. And also there is a process under the convention in Article 17 where Article 16, where the effectiveness of the convention is done every 6 years. The assessment is done through all the, whether or not all the articles of the convention have been implemented, and then had these implementation been effective, and and also there is a global monitoring program from where the environmental samples are taken, or the reports are compiled and seen that whether the convention is achieving what it strived for, what was the objective. So all these information are gathered from Article 15 reporting submitted by the parties. So these are the main objectives. And the technical resources, there is a reporting template available. It's online template actually, and then there are username and passwords provided by the secretariat to the eligible parties and to the focal points, the official contact points, who then will prepare and submit their report, national report, through these online means. And there is a reporting database. All the reports that have been submitted so far are all available in the website. So you can see them, and it is a very interactive sort of. You can see that, how many countries have reported, and if you go select on particular POPs, and you can see that what is the quantity reported in one a region and versus other region, one country versus other country. So all sort of data analysis can be done through what has been reported. And there are COP decisions on reporting that is also available in the website. And for financial resources, there are not dedicated resources as such, but implementing of the Stockholm Convention, where you can have projects and you can get funding from GEF on preparing NEP or implementing the projects. But also there are some funds that have been provided under for the institutional strengthening kind of projects by this special program. And this many countries have taken the benefit from this special program in strengthening their national capacity, where reporting is one of the target. So this is my presentation. Thank you very much for listening. And if you may have any questions, I will be I'll be there. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Suman. It was indeed very, very helpful to refresh our memories about what Stockholm Convention provides in regard to the national implementation plans and the national reporting. And I believe our countries will be mindful of that throughout the whole project cycle and after. So we will move forward, and we would like to share with you the results of the survey that GGKP conducted to assess the existing knowledge of the countries about national implementation plans. So let me share my screen. Just a moment. And I hope you can see it. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. Okay, then. As we move forward, we are sharing the results of the survey that we conducted, and it's really regrettable that the response rate was quite low. We believe that you wanted to participate, and that, but everyone probably was busy preparing for upcoming the BRS COP, and therefore we extend the survey period, and we hope you will share your feedback by the next webinar, which will be in May. So we are sharing the links to the survey and the chat. We'll share them soon. And please feel free to follow the link in your language: English, Russian, French, and Spanish. So we had a very small survey sample. It was just 10 participants on the survey. And well, we thank them for participation. And we still want to share some of the general items on the list with you. So 90% of the surveyed sample replied that they have been involved in the previous NIP in their country. And it gives us the hope that we have people equipped with the knowledge and the expertise. And if you're new in the project, don't worry, GGKP is here for you to cover for the knowledge gaps. And in regards to the question, next question, what do you think about, what do you think POPs data compiled during update and reporting will be used for? Most of the respondents, they replied that it will be used for the legislature updates, future projects, action to protect human health, environment, rational POPs management, activities to raise public awareness about the POPs, necessary to have a clear picture on the POPs in the country, including import and export, and also for development of national priorities and action plans, which is really important, and to improve our efforts to eliminate dangerous POPs, which is really good. And on the next slide, we have 80% of the respondents which are familiar with the NIP recommended structure. And we are actually happy to know that. So in our last session of the webinar, we'll talk about the structure, and we hope you will be able to share your insights and ask more questions in the chat. And finally, 100% of the respondents, they know what kind of inventories, what kind of the inventories should be conducted during the NIP update process, which is also very good. And among those, they indicated chemicals and waste, inventory of emissions, including data on legal entities, addressing COP6, COP7, COP8, COP9 amendments, POPs, pesticides inventory, industrial chemical inventory, inventory of UPOPs, POPs newly listed in the Stockholm Convention, and inventories of industrial chemicals. So we are very happy to have those who participated in the survey, and we really hope you will participate. So the survey is open and it's available for you till our next webinar in May. And further, I'm happy to introduce Ms. Anna Bergiani, the head of Chemicals Management Division, Waste and Chemicals Management Department of the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Agriculture of Georgia. She volunteered to share Georgia's experience with national implementation plans and activities in this regard. So let me share my screen for you, Ms. Anna Bergiani. Just a moment. Are you here?
Yes, I am here. Thank you for giving me the floor.
Okay, just one moment.
Yes.
We are here with the presentations.
So should I already share the presentation?
Can you share it, or shall I share
I
it?
think I can.
Okay, let's have a try. Okay, I can see it on the screen. I think you're sharing.
I also believe that I am sharing.
Yeah, you do. So
Okay.
floor is yours.
Well, thank you. I will try to be not very long on my presentation. I will just outline the basic experiences of Georgia, how we deal with Stockholm Convention, how important NIP is for us. So I will start with a small introduction that Georgia became a party to the Stockholm Convention in 2006. And our first NIP, how do I move to next slide? Okay, our first NIP was adopted in 2011 by governmental decree. And according to our first NIP, the priority areas of the NIP were pesticides, which underlines obsolete pesticide stocks. And second priority was PCBs, and third was furans and dioxins, like byproducts. And our biggest priority, as I already mentioned, was this POPs pesticides stockpiles, because Georgia, as post-Soviet country, is dealing with a POPs heritage, so to speak, that there was a special burial operating in Georgia at Yarluja, and there were like 2,700 tons of pesticides were disposed there, and later on they were like abandoned without any control and posed a threat to human health and environment. So even before adopting our first NIP, we had carried out several activities on these regards, like project about inventory, packaging, and safety store of the outdated and obsolete pesticides in Georgia was carried out. And from different sites, contaminated sites, some amount of like obsolete pesticides were repacked and transported to central storage, which is like Yarluja polygon, and also some 200 tons of contaminated soils was disposed at the same place. And then in the following years, after first NIP was approved, we received a new projects according to our NIP, and within one project, in 2014, 230 tons of POP pesticides were collected, packed, and exported to Belgium and France for disposal. And the territory of Yarluja dump site was fenced, and the warning signs have been installed. And also in the scope of this project, landfill remediation action plan was elaborated with 3 conceptual scenarios, but we are still until now looking forward for find the funding to implement our most favorable scenario. And also POPs inventory have been carried out, as well as awareness raising activities. And then in 2016, additional 208 tons of pesticides were also collected and packed and sent to France for disposal. And let me show you some pictures from Yarluja dump site. This is how the project, these pictures include like both project, I guess, like how they were like digging out this contaminated soil, packing them into the bags, and working with this also PPE to ensure the safety to the human health. And then in later years, as new POPs has been listed to the Stockholm annexes, it was decided to have a process for NIP update. So our second NIP was adopted in 2018 by the governmental decree, and it's for 2011 to 2020 years. And it was done in a GEF-funded project implemented by UNEP. And this new NIP, second NIP of Georgia, addresses the POPs listed in 2009, 11, and 13. And in a brief, it describes the background of POPs issues in Georgia and the current situation of the POPs substances, and details all the strategies and actions which need to be undertaken in order to meet all the obligations of the convention. And also have been compiled during the NIP preparation process, the inventories for all POPs groups, initial and newly added POPs in 2009 and 11. So now we have like new priority arrangement in the new updated plan, because as first for the first NIP of Georgia, on the first place was the POPs pesticides, aka Yarluja burial. But now in the newly adopted NIP, our top 1 priority became PCBs. So it's like rearranged now, and polychlorinated biphenyls are like top priority. Then it's followed by POPs pesticides, managing and dealing with Yarluja burial. And then it's followed by unintentional POPs, also polybrominated diphenyl ethers and hexabromocyclododecyne, and also PFOS and related substances. And this NIP is now including several action plans as annexes, and each annex is addressing a particular issue that has to be dealt and describes how it should be implemented, what results should be reached, and also possible fundings. To briefly describe the situation about POPs in Georgia, the information we are also having and the regulations that we have in place is that like POPs, pesticides, and not only pesticides, but also industrial POPs are not produced in Georgia and actually never was produced. So mostly we are dealing with historical contamination, so to speak. And also there is no POPs pesticides import in the country, and all POPs pesticides are banned for use. And according to Georgian governmental decree on the rule of import and export of certain hazardous chemicals and pesticides and implementation of prior informed consent procedure, import, export, production, and use of POPs listed under Stockholm Convention is prohibited. And this decree also implements Rotterdam Convention because it introduces the PIC procedure for Rotterdam Annex 3 chemicals, and it also implements this PIC regulation of EU, which was subject of our EU association agreement with EU. So this is like 3-in-1 decree. And another special decree I would like to highlight is governmental decree for special rules and procedures for collection and treatment of POPs, because this is under the requirements of collection and treatment of hazardous waste. And it has like special article about treating POPs waste. But last year in December, we added new annexes and new articles to this decree, and it now incorporates the rules and safety norms for the management of equipment and oils contaminated by PCBs and also managing their waste. And still the pesticide stockpiles is still present at Yahlovja mountain on the territory of like approximately of 4 hectares. And as I already mentioned, in the last years, up to 440 tons of obsolete pesticides were sent to Belgium and France for disposal, but this territory still is like contaminated and still waiting for further decontamination or remediation. So at the moment, according to our MIP, we are implementing a PCB management project, which is funded by GEF and implemented by UNIDO. And this project envisages to introduce the PCB-free electricity distribution concept in Georgia. And in the scope of this project, a PCB inventory of the equipment in the electricity supply sector was carried out and the database was developed. And also the special rules that I mentioned just on previous slide, it was also elaborated in the scope and with the technical support of this project. And regional trainings and various awareness raising activities and the management of PCBs and some safety rules have been also carried out. So now we are having to deal with planned activities in this scope that we have to select the technology for the contamination of devices containing PCBs and also to implement some pilot cleaning measures. And if in case of detection of high PCB, like pure PCBs, to export them abroad for the contamination. And also we plan to conduct additional awareness raising meetings. And I would say as for challenge that was like faced by Georgia during last year, I think it would be similar to other countries as well, because we all know that we have like deadlines regarding PCBs according to Stockholm Convention. And it's not new for anyone that last 2 years it was like earth stood still because of COVID pandemic, and it was quite difficult for a project to conduct the meetings or trainings, or sometimes site visits for like taking samples were being complicated. So we, when we're discussing this issue in the BRS COPS regional meetings, that from our region, some other countries also agreed that this COVID pandemic actually put quite a big gap for moving towards the reaching the deadline set by convention. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Ms. Anna Bergiani. We know this day is full of meetings for you and probably for most of the countries. So we sincerely appreciate your efforts to share despite of this tight schedule. And once again, thank you for your presentation, especially this Yaguja landfill experience and the actions on the PCB management in the country. It was very impressive, and I believe that it will be helpful to the countries as well. Thank you. And before we continue to break the ice and draw the attention of our participants, we would like to share a quick poll with you. So I will try to launch the poll, and if you could let me know if you see it. I hope you can see it.
Yes, we
Okay,
can
so
see.
perfect. So we would like to ask our countries, have you ever been involved in your country's previous NIP? So it's very simple. You answer yes or no. Oh, it's very high participation rates. We are waiting. Let's wait a couple of minutes, and then we will give floor to Mihaela. Okay, we have 20.
I
Okay.
cannot vote.
Okay, just a moment. But yeah, we will have your voice so you can answer the question. Anyway, I think we can end up with this poll, and let's see the results. Okay, I hope you can see the results on the screen. 72% said that they have been involved in their country's previous NIP, and 28 probably are new to the NIP project, or maybe not, maybe they participated in different parts. So I'll stop sharing. And okay. And we will move forward to our next speaker, Ms. Mihaela Claudia Pon, who is doing her best to address the country's request in components 1 and 2, and is one of the most experienced people in national implementation plans I have met. Floor is your, Mihaela.
Sorry, I hope you can see my screen. Is this
Yes,
correct?
we did. Yes, we did.
Okay, okay. So let me put slideshare. Okay. So thank you so much to all of you for being here today. It's amazing to see how many participants we have online. This is great. And also many thanks to our colleagues from GGKP for their hard work putting this webinar together, despite all this time zone difference and any other challenges that they have encountered in the preparation of this event. So without further ado, I will move to my first part of the presentation. So basically, I'm here to introduce the basic elements as regards to the national implementation plans. So I think first and foremost, what is the role of the NIP? So having all this, on one hand, my national experience with the NIP, but also the experience at international level with working with different countries, I have put here some of the main roles that I could identify. Of course, this is non-exhaustive list, and I will be also curious to see from your side if you will be able to identify additional roles of the NIP. So I think we have seen also from the presentation of Anna from Georgia that having a NIP, it is a strategic thing. NIP is a strategic document that steers the implementation of the Stockholm Convention at the national level. And we have seen from her presentation, for example, that this having this plan, having all these priorities led to a project on PCB elimination, because they highly prioritize this in their national implementation plan. So this is one of the roles, and also linked to her presentation, we have seen that having such a strategic document, the external financial resources for the Stockholm Convention implementation, because all the donors are able to see what are your priorities, and they can also decide if they want to invest more and support you, or also you know, sometimes there is this alignment between different countries' priorities and donor. So this also happens during the NIP development and update. And I think another main role is that I have seen in many NIPs that through the actions, activities included there, there leads to ensuring this mainstreaming of the Stockholm-related matters, management of the POPs into other national and sectoral strategies and plan, like in the agriculture sector, so when it comes to pesticides, or in the industry sector when it comes to different industrial chemicals and waste management issues and so on. And of course, the document is very important as to ensure a basis for a national budget allocation, because otherwise you will not get the national finance unless there is scientific information that is backing up the priority setting and the action plans into the NIP. So this ensures countries and ministries of environment, for example, leading this implementation to get national budget also for implementation of the Stockholm Convention. Another important aspect when it comes to role of NIP, it supports party in meeting their reporting obligation. And I think most of you remember my presentation during the Global Inception workshop where I presented what are the links between the NIP and the reporting and so on. So therefore it is seen as a NIP having a key role in ensuring the reporting and complying with the reporting obligations. And also I think it's still relevant in all the information included into the NIP ensures that there is a place in the National Research and Monitoring Programs also for POPs, because they need to be, I mean, the monitoring of POP needs to be part of the broader research and monitoring programs that the country have. I mean, it depends on the country, of course, but at least there can be a trigger, you know, there can be signals based on the POPs information that we have, that this needs to be embedded into these programs. And there are also other roles, like NIPs. Sometimes I've seen that it triggers development of an update of legislation on Stockholm Convention implementation. And not only, there are countries that through the NIP, they are triggering change overall waste management legislation, for example, or some legislative acts on pesticides that are governed by the Ministry of Agriculture, for example, or you know, different other legislative changes that are not really directly linked to Stockholm, but have implication on the Stockholm implementation. And there were countries that also, through their NIPs, proposed to build at national level this integrated approach for chemicals and waste management. So they go beyond the Stockholm Convention, how to say, area of action. And also another important things that that you all know that through the NIP development and update process, there is this the establishment of this national coordination mechanism or committees or whatever you want to call it. And there were countries that they kept this and they expanded to the whole chemicals and waste agenda, which I think it's quite important and a good thing that was triggered by the NIP. And nevertheless, now through the updated NIPs, we have seen that there are links and there is better clarity offered to understand the interlinkages between chemicals and waste and, for example, sustainable development goals, because there are links there and they need to be known between chemicals and waste and SAICM, which is the overarching policy. And you know that SAICM is an undergoing a negotiation how this looks after 2020. Also links with the climate change and biodiversity. There is a recent framework for global framework for biodiversity that was adopted and have some implication also on pesticides, for example, reduction, including on what it is listed in the Stockholm Convention and what will come, you know, in the future as new chemicals. What are the benefits of having this document? Because we are not doing it for nothing. So I think first and foremost, it provides clarity. So improves the understanding of different stakeholders at the country level on the POP's presence and their impact dimension at the national level, and through all these multi-sectoral processes, it established this communication platform at the national level, bringing together all the stakeholders, right? Also, through the communication and exchanges, it increased the buy-in of different stakeholders, because once they understand what POPs means, what their impact is, what their implication in different economic sector is, and if the plan is well researched and documented and presented, then it's easier to get the buy-in of stakeholders. For example, when you come at the stage of endorsing your NIP, and we all know that this is a painful process sometimes. And if we take the example of Georgia, as mentioned by Anna, they managed to adopt a legislative act as to be able to implement the plan, which is crucial. Therefore, it means that they had the buy-in of all the stakeholders, of all the involved ministries and agencies at the national level, and improves cooperation. I think it's an instrument that how to say, cries for cooperation, how to say, and I think cooperation is the key for a successful implementation of the plans of the plan, because as I said, it's multi-sectoral type of action that needs to be taken, right? And I think also through monitoring the progress for the implementation of the plan, keeps all the stakeholders on track, right? So they are aware from the beginning who will need to do what, by when, and you know, what are the interconnections between different stakeholders, roles and responsibilities, and so on. So keeps everyone on track, and it keeps everyone accountable as well, because you know, this is not only a matter of Ministry of Environment that is governing the Stockholm Convention nationally. It's a matter of all other ministries that may have implications into the implementation. So yes, and I think my last slide in this part of the presentation is what could be the different roles of POPs data that and uses of the POPs data that we generate into the NIP development and update process. And here I listed few. Of course, I will love to hear from your side what other roles of this data you see or you have experienced. So helps to comply with the reporting obligation. So as comprehensive the inventory process is, it influences the level of compliance with the reporting. Then it can be a basis for policy and decision making as regards to POP. So for example, we have seen in case of Georgia that they identify they have a huge issue with legacy pesticide stockpile. Therefore, having this POPs data available help them to influence the policy maker and take stronger decision and being able to collect and dispose the stockpiles, the remaining stockpiles, and helps mainstreaming the environmental protection dimension into other sectoral policy and plans, as I said, influence the industry sector, the agriculture sector, the transport sector, and so on and so forth. It can be used as a background information in discussing and attracting internal and external funding from donors. Of course, it's good to have good data to showcase at these discussions. Also, it can be background information or baseline information for new projects, including GEF projects. It helps in informing other relevant government ministries, agencies, industries, NGO, general public, what is the status of POPs elimination reduction in your country, which is quite important. And in the context of listing of new chemicals, especially industrial chemicals that are present in different articles, informing the public is crucial because they are also part of the solution in eliminating and reducing the generation of different waste of articles containing POPs. And also it helps in designing or further strengthening the national monitoring and research and development on POPs, because while you see what the hotspots are or what are the gaps, then you can plan better for your research and monitoring priorities. So that is all from my side on the first part. Thank you. So if you have any questions, I'm here to reply.
Thank you very much, Mihaela, for your overview. It's really good start. And I know we have the lion's share of your presentation materials in the second part of the webinar. And if you, so wouldn't you mind if we proceed with a Q&A session? And we are actually welcoming all the countries to send their questions to the chat. We are here. We have several speakers from the countryside and from UDAP and from BRS Secretariat. So we are ready for your questions. But so far we have not seen anything in the chat, I think. So we just tried to break the ice. We posted some of the questions already. Maybe you will take time to reply and respond as we proceed. So we will just ask one question to any of the speakers. Just please be mindful of the time. We have 35 minutes left. So we will probably ask about how does an updated NIP differ from the original NIP? So some of the countries, they have conducted their NIP update and some countries haven't yet. So probably that could be the question. How does it differ? What are the key components of an updated NIP? Is it different or is it quite similar in the format? So we would like to hear your opinion. Any of the speakers, maybe.
Okay, so if you want me, I can take this one.
Sure.
If okay with everyone, but yeah. So I think there are similarities, but also some differences, right? So when you do your NIP update, basically you need to focus on let's say two main things. So first is to update the information that you included in the previous NIP for the POPs that were part of that previous NIP, right? But also the second aspect is also to compile new information about the newly listed POPs that you want to consider into your NIP. And in here, I mean, there are countries that are not addressing each and every POP, but they are addressing a group of POPs, 2 or 3 or 4, or all the POPs listed by the date they started the update. So in a nutshell, it's update the previous information and include new information about the new POPs. But in terms of structure of the NIP and the steps that you follow, the steps remains the same. There are 5 main steps that you need to take. And I think the novelty will be maybe in terms of the new POPs, where you have new guidance documents for you to follow when you carry out your inventories. But for the old POPs, I mean, the previous listed POPs, you use the same. But also it's good to check that there are always updates to the guidance documents. So I think it's always good to check what is the latest one that you can use. So this is in a nutshell. Of course, you can talk for hours, but yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mihala. Maybe anyone from the speakers want to comment or welcome any of your insights, anything? Okay. So we would like to, before Mihala continues with the second session, we would like to initiate another poll just to break the ice. It looks like it's not yet. So that's another question we would like to share with you. Are you familiar with the NIP recommended structure? And you can answer yes or no. It's very simple. So are you familiar with the NIP recommended structure? Okay, we see people are very active in the polls. It's really good. So we will wait a minute or two unless we get high rates, and we'll share the results on the screen. Okay, a little bit left. Okay, we will share the results. And I hope you can see the screen. Okay, so 69% of the respondents, they are familiar with the NIP recommended structure. 31 is not familiar yet, but it's really good because Mihala's next part of the presentation is about NIP recommended structure. Okay, I will stop sharing and floor to you, Mihala.
Yes, thank you. Just 1 second to share
Sure,
again.
sure. Take your time.
Okay. Yes, so I hope you can see it.
Yes, we can see. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so yes, I was I've seen the results of the poll, so it seems that I mean, half of the people present here, they are not aware, which I think my presentation comes in handy. So to start with, all of you need to know that there is, and I think most of you know, but I'm repeating this. I think it's good to repeat at some point. We have a guidance documents on the developing of the national implementation plan that is available on the Stockholm website. And in these guidance documents, there is in an annex a list of recommended elements for an outline of the NIP. And it is Annex 10 of the guidance document. So I'm now proceeding in briefly introducing the NIP structure. So as you see here on these slides, there are 3 main chapters into the NIP. So an introductory part, which is chapter 1, a country baseline chapter, which is chapter 2, And then chapter three is dedicated to strategy and action plan elements of the NEP. And now to give a bit of details, because you wonder what should I put in the introductory section. So introductory section, it's mostly to, you know, to briefly describe, you know, what is the purpose of this current NEP update. You know, you can say I followed, you know, the update and I have included new information on these groups of POPs. Some, I mean, in most NIPs that I have seen, there is a summary of the relevant Stockholm Convention aims and obligations. What was the internal mechanism that you have used to update on NIPs? So some of the countries, they are describing this mechanism, that they have a national coordination mechanism, they have meeting with stakeholders. And moreover, in the newly updated NIPs, we have two more sections. One is on the gender considerations. So I think this becomes to be a must in the NIPs, that how you have considered the gender issues, not only in the NIP update process, but also in the NIP action plans, right? Because it may be the case that some actions affects differently, you know, gender groups like women, men, vulnerable groups, children, and so on and so forth. And another section that usually goes into this introductory chapter is on socioeconomic considerations. As you know, we have a guidance documents under the Stockholm Convention on socioeconomic considerations. I think that is a bit difficult to follow. We will work on make it lighter and user-friendly, in the sense that there are different socioeconomic aspects that you need to consider when you are planning your activities, right? And I think it is good to capture, and they influence also the estimative costs of implementing different actions and activities that you have included. So this is basically in the introductory part. Then chapter 2, I think apart from the you know, the background on country situation, geography, population, all these elements, industry, different industry and economic sectors, and legislative framework that you have. In this sector, I think the main part is the situation about the POPs. I mean, the description of the results of the POPs inventories that you have conducted. And in here, there are different sections for different POPs or POPs groups, like pesticides, PCBs, POP PBDs, and so on and so forth. And this is very much depending, as I said, on what group of POPs you are addressing at one update session, how to say, exercise. And also it includes a section where you describe what is the status of the implementation of the previous version of the NEP, because I think we have seen that some of the activities previously planned or objective previously set were lost on the way. So when they did the update, because I mean, some of them, they were not implemented, they were not taking over in the new version of the NEP, they were just dropped, and they plan for others. So I think having an overview on what was achieved from the previous NEP and what needs to be to continue the current update, it's very important to have. And chapter 3 is basically compiling all the action plan, and including a policy statement. So this is basically the commitment that your government takes in implementing the Stockholm Convention in the plan, but also an implementation strategy. So you have an action plan, but how do you move to, to put this in action, right? So you have a strategy and you define their different stakeholders that take different roles in implementing the action plans. So basically, in a nutshell, this is the structure. Is not complicated at all, and for consistency, I mean, between different countries, different NIPs, it is recommended to follow this structure, because otherwise, as we see now, there are different NIPs with more than 3 chapters, and when there is a need, I don't know, from the BRS Secretariat or from the GIF side to compile information is not comparable, right? Because there are these differences between the structures used by countries. And yes, so this is, I already explained, so this is even the detailed information that I mentioned. So maybe to add that chapter 2 has 3 sub-chapters, how to say, and I already explained to this. I will skip this, and anyway, you can revisit. In chapter 3, I already mentioned what is in it. And now, if we are to move to the inventory, so what inventory do we need to focus on the NIP update? Again, I repeat, this is the current list of different inventories that need to be taken by parties, but it very much depends on the decision of the country on how many, for example, newly listed POPs they want to focus on, right? So some countries focus on 2 or 3 POPs or POPs groups, some others they focus on all in their NIPs. So this is, so there is no perfect solution. It depends on the countries and how many POPs they want to address in one NIP update. Okay, so then I will proceed. So I will go quickly. So like first group is the POPs pesticides. Here is just a snapshot of the pesticides listed into the convention and which ones they have still specific exemptions or acceptable purposes. You see here, it's pentachlorophenol, salts and ester, technical endosulfan, and related isomers, and DDT and PFOS. Therefore, I mean, when you go for the update, I think first is to focus on these pesticides that are still allowed, you know, in checking at the country level. But of course, you can also do a background check for other chemicals, other pesticides, if they were used, you know, if there are stockpiles left. So here it's so you will see these slides for other groups. So this is kind of repetitive, but I think it's very valuable because you understand what the objectives of the inventories are, right? So what do you need to focus? Focus on the life cycle of the pesticides, like production, use, import, export, disposal, and stockpiles at the country level. Also assess the legal and institutional framework for the control of all these life cycle stages. Identify the gaps in information. So, you know, even though you look into it, maybe you are not able to find all relevant information. Therefore, you need to mark this as a gap and address it next time. In case, you know, you identify that you are using one of the still allowed pesticides, also look for alternatives, you know, if there are stakeholders at the country level using alternative products and not the POPs or all this. And of course, determine if your country needs an exemption and if it needs to register for one of the exemption, right? So this is also important. And last but not least, also look at the contaminated sites. Of course, most of the time this is qualitative evaluation, because countries, they don't have resources to go more in depth for a quantitative evaluation of the contaminated site, but at least it's something. So you can list potential contaminated sites with POPs pesticide. And an overview of quantitative data, right? So also this is a table that I like to, and I will use for when presenting other POPs. So I follow the life cycle step you find here. So I will not repeat, because as I said, you can also consult this, but it's important to see that on the right side, whenever it's a link with Article 15 reporting or other reporting requirements, I marked it. So then you know that if I collect this and that information, for example, on production, on import-export or stockpiles, this will be relevant in preparing my Article 15 reporting. Then pentachlorophenol salts and ester, this is also a pesticide, but for this one we have also a separate inventory guideline. Usually countries, they are approaching this chemical together with all other pesticides, so not as standalone inventory, but I wanted to present it separately because we have a guidance document, I mean a specific guidance document. So it is listed in Annex A with a specific exemption for production in use in utility poles and cross arms. So these are the, the electricity poles that are supporting the electricity transport, you remember, and they use this substance, to protect the wood, right, of these utility poles against fungicides and all that. It was also used in leather, right, as a preservative from fungal damage during the wet processing of these materials of the leather, but also in pulp and paper and so on. So always pay attention into the convention, because not all the congeners of pentachlorophenol salts and ester are subject to the Stockholm Convention. So here you have the list of the ones that are currently covered by the convention. And this will repeat also for other POPs groups you will see from my presentation. And again, you have here a snapshot of what are the objectives. There is similarity with what I explained for POPs pesticide. If you are using these pesticides for the exempted for the exemptions, and also focus on your country need to register for such exemption if you are still using it, and the rest is the same. I will not repeat, right? And then the quantitative data, it is similar, but here maybe to highlight that, for example, when it comes to import-export, we are talking about import of substance and mixtures as such, but also we are talking about, for example, treated timber, right? That is, PCP treated timber imported and exported for utility poles and cross arms building, and waste containing these substances. So timber waste, type of containing waste imported for, I don't know, environmental sand disposal or any other uses, right? As you see, there are two focuses, is substance as such, but also treated products and articles with the substance. And again, the links with Article 15 reporting are marked. Then if we look at PCB, so you all know it is listed under annexes A and C. We have two approaching deadlines, 2025 to remove all the containing equipment from use, and 2028 to completely eliminate the PCB containing waste. Objectives, of course, there is similarity with what I told for other groups, but I think here for PCB we have we should focus on closed and at some point open application. I think the focus on open application is still low and not much done, globally speaking. Because we're still facing a lot of problems with closed application like transformers and capacitors. So then here there is the list of quantitative data for you to focus on when collecting. So of course, I think maybe the major focus it's on use part and waste disposal. So equipment in service, out of service, its mass, total mass of equipment, mass of liquids, PCB content in oil, where is the available, and then PCB destroyed, right? Locally and abroad, and also not to forget about import and export for environmental sound disposal, because you all know that this is the only allowed this is only allowed by the Stockholm Convention. And I think here to flag is you always need to check with your Basel colleagues, the colleagues who work Basel Convention colleagues that are working on reporting, because this is subject to transborder movements. And what we have seen from the recent PCB elimination report done by BRS Secretariat, there are discrepancies, between the Stockholm reported data and the Basel reported data, which should not be. Therefore, this is a red flag for you to focus on. And then, as I said, there is the issue of open application. This is not yet developed, but yes, here it's much more complicated. Only few countries work on this, and you see here different potential open applications, sealants, paints, anti-corrosion coatings, cable sheets, and so on and so forth. I think one important thing is to look also at the construction and demolition waste, because of their former use of PCBs in this type of application, most of them, they are ending up in the waste phase now, and construction and demolition waste is one of the first to try to deal with. Then on POP-BDE, you know that we have the first commercial octa BDE and commercial penta BDE listed in Annex A. There are specific exemptions for recycling of articles containing this POP-BDE. And then we have the TECA BDE. So this is recently listed one. It's listed in Annex A with specific exemption for production in use, and you'll see here. So parts of for use in legacy vehicles, aircrafts, textile products that require anti-flammable characteristics, additives in plastic, and polyurethane foam. Again, objectives of the inventories are the same throughout the life cycle. Of course, focus is on maybe the recycling aspect, if this happens or not in your country, or for example, electric and electronics, or end-of-life vehicles that are major sectors where these chemicals were used, or textiles, and the need for exemptions. And yeah, if there is any legal framework in place, maybe it's also very, very important. And of course, production, use, import, export. So here is the list of quantitative data. So for the first two, commercial octa and commercial penta, and here I think again there are different distinctions between substance as such or import in different articles or products like electric and electronics, vehicles. So for you to focus on, you see here that we also have links. We make the connection with other reporting obligation, and for POPI-BDE, you remember that you are receiving a separate questionnaire every 3 years, I think, from the PRS Secretariat to report on for them to collect information for the evaluation and review of the exemption, right? And here, so it's we are looking at the POPs content in different articles, in news or in import, export, or in stockpiles, but also we are what is even more important is to quantify the polymeric fraction. So this is the plastic fraction that contains these substances, right? So in the end, if there are certain articles, for example, produced before 2004, like cathode ray tube TVs, you know, those TVs with tubes or computer monitors with tubes. I think the most important is the value of the polymeric fraction, because that is to be managed when they reach end of life, right? So the POPs content is there, right? But I don't think you need to be really straightforward about the content, but the volume of the polymeric fraction that needs to be managed. So this continues, you know, for other life cycle steps. As I said, it's good to check if there is any recycling on these products at the country level, and if there are new products manufactured from the recycling material, because this brings us to a new issue, which it's I mean, if the low POP content is not complied with, we end up with the dilution of these substances in new products, which is really unfortunate. So we need to be careful and look at this. And then for DECA-BDE, so usually countries, they are performing CO-octa-BDE, C-penta-BDE one inventory, because there are a lot of common aspects and their presence, like in electric and electronics, textile, insulation from vehicles. So there are common sources where they could be found. And here it's the same, and I will not repeat, because you can look by yourself and do this more in depth. Again, polymeric fraction when it comes to end-of-life vehicles and pure form, you know, polymeric fraction when it comes to electric and electronics, and pure form when it comes to end-of-life vehicles or vehicles, it's important, because that is to be managed. Then on hexabromocyclododecane, I think I'm running out of time. So please, Anastasia, let me know if I should continue or
actually, Mihaela, thanks for raising this, because we're just watching carefully the time, and we're very aware that other people have told us already that they have other webinars today. So, you know, this is a two-part webinar. So what I suggest is that we agree to pause here so that we have time for Kenya's intervention, because they've kindly stayed on time. Is that okay with you?
Yes, it's perfectly fine, and I know that
Thank you.
because it's a long list of.
It is, exactly, and we can't shorten the list, so we really just need to say that we'll continue this on part 2 of the webinar, if that's okay.
Okay.
So thank you, Mihaela, and back to you, Anastasia.
Yes, thank you. Thank you as
well. Thank you very much, Mihaela. Thank you. So since we are being mindful of time, and Mr. Cyrus Majere, he left us. He unfortunately had to run to another meeting. But I can see his message in the chat that his colleague, Mr. Francis, could present instead of him. And I hope he's here among our participants. Okay. Okay, he unmuted himself. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Okay. Shall
Yeah.
we share the screen?
We had already shared our presentation, so we'll just try
Yes,
and.
I will share. I think we can see it on the
Okay.
screen now.
All right.
Okay.
So I'll just take you through briefly.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So maybe you can put it in presentation mode. Please. Yeah.
It should
Okay.
work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Floor is yours.
Yeah. So I'm presenting on behalf of the director, Mr. Seras Mageria, on Kenya's experience in development of the first NIP and the updating of the initial NIP. So please, next slide, please. Yeah, so these are the, we were borrowing from the structure of the NIP. So for the baseline of Kenya, as at now, the estimated population is 53 million. Our area is around 580 square kilometers, and the main economic activities are agriculture, manufacturing, service industry, and tourism. Kenya is a party to the Stockholm Convention and also to the Basel and Rotterdam Convention. So we are obliged to report under this convention. We also party to the Montreal and are signatory to the Minamata Convention. Next slide, please. Yeah, so we have developed two NIPs. The initial NIP was developed in from the year 2002 to the year 2006. Is when the first NIP addressed the 12 initial POPs. It was developed with the help of a national consultant. We looked at legal and policy issues, pesticide POPs, industrial POPs, EU POPs, research, economics, and also budgeting. So the NIP was endorsed by an interstitial committee before it was submitted to the Secretariat. We updated the initial NIP in 2014 using a step-by-step guidance that was provided by UNEP. Then again, we addressed pesticide POPs, industrial POPs, research, and socioeconomics. Unfortunately, we have not been able to update our NIP since 2014 to address the listed chemicals that have been listed by the COPs since 2014. So we feel that this project comes at a very crucial time. Rather, it's very timely for Kenya to update our NIP. Because we have been lagging behind in developing, rather updating our NIP. Next slide, please. So for the role of the NIP at the national level, we looked at it as on two facets. One is promoting sound chemicals management in the country. Just to inform government on POPs, production, import, export, use, emission, and releases, and to identify problems related to POPs, and also identify which intervention areas we can make in regards to addressing the problem of POPs. Then on compliance, the NIP will help Kenya to comply with Article 7 of the Stockholm Convention, and also on Article 15 on national reporting. So for us, we felt those are the two main roles of NEP at the national level. Next slide, please. Use of compiled data at national level. So for the UPOPs, we have been using UPOPs to map out the location and other hotspots for UPOPs. We were able to implement a project on to address UPOPs from medical waste. The project just ended. This one was a result of using data from the NEP, the updated NEP and the initial NEP. So we were promoting the adoption of BAT and BEP technologies in the management of healthcare waste and municipal waste. So this is one of the ways that Kenya has used data compiled in the national implementation plans. Also, the data will be used to develop policy and administration briefs. We are developing other policy that borrows heavily from the NEPs. So briefly discuss on how POPs data can be used at the national level. Next slide, please. Yeah, so in developing the initial NEPs and the update of the initial NEP, we used part of the team that developed the past NEP, but I've been working with the colleagues who are part of the team, and they used the guidance and guidelines developed by UNEP. The step made it easy. A toolkit helped in calculating, compiling the NEP. I know we don't have time, so I'll quickly request we move to the next slide. On the challenges. So on the NEP, we have training of consultants on the guidelines. I think this was one of the challenges that was identified. It was also not, it was difficult getting data from stakeholders. This is still a challenge, and sometimes we have obsolete data, so they need to keep updating data so that we have very inputting the new NEP, the toolkits. So we hope that these challenges will be addressed so that we have a very comprehensive NEP when we complete the project. Thank you very much. I was rushing because I am aware we don't have, we are time constrained. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So just 1 second, we are being mindful of the time as well. And yes, thank you very much. We had our presenters from the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry of Kenya. So we heard from Kenya just yesterday, and we were very glad that you volunteered to share. Million thanks to you and your team, and we really appreciate that you did it in the final minutes. So thank you so much. I think we are a bit out of time. So we are almost in the end of our webinar, and I see a lot of questions, not questions, but requests to share the material and share the records of the webinar. So please take note that we will be sharing it by email. We'll be sharing it on the Green Forum and also on our platform, and of course through the regional centers. So we have several responses on the questions, but being mindful of the time, we will be posting them on Green Forum, and we will be providing our responses and comments and feedback in this regard. So you will find it on Green Forum. And one more time, let us express our deep gratitude to the countries. We know that for some of you, it's early morning, for some of you, it's evening, and that everyone is busy to attend other events today. Thank you so much. Special thanks to our panelists, Ms. Anna Berejani, Ms. Cyrus Majaria, and his colleague, Mr. Francis. We love our NIP countries. Many thanks to our colleagues from BRS Secretariat and UNEP. You cooperate with GGKP a lot, and this is invaluable. Many thanks to our interpreters for a great job. We love you too. And before we move to the final remarks, we'd like to share the links to another survey in the chat. Again, please follow the link in your language. This survey is to have your feedback about this webinar and also your proposals about the future webinars. Please don't hesitate to participate. And finally, again, we will be sharing the record of the webinar on our platform, GGKP and on Green Forum, and by email directly to all the registered participants and through regional centers. So you will receive our presentations from UNEP promptly this week. So you can have, you can always come back and review them. And the final word to our participants and to our speakers. Anyone who want to say something? I heard that Mr. Suman, he had to run to another meeting, but he expressed his best regards and best wishes to all of us. So probably Mihaela, Melanie, Miss Anna Berejani.
Just a quick word from me, Anastasia, to say thank you, and special thanks to Mihaela for getting through so much of the material today to begin us on our introduction to NIP. As we noted, I think, at the start of the session, this is a two-part webinar because, as Mihaela said, it's a very long list of chemicals that we're making an inventory of. So thank you, Mihaela, for your flexibility in terms of cutting your presentation short today. What we'll be doing is scheduling the second part of the webinar, and we'll be picking up where we left off. So please don't feel that you're going to be missing out on anything. And as Anastasia said, we will be answering the questions in the Green Forum. So please, if you haven't joined, do join. You'll also be getting another email from Anastasia this week. Everybody who participated will be getting another invitation. So that's all from my side. Thank you, Anastasia, for the brilliant coordination, Mihaela and Suman for the great presentations, and Georgia and Kenya for contributing today. We really appreciate it. And back to you, Anastasia.
Yes, we'll just give a word to Georgia and Mihaela to say goodbye.
Okay, so should I go first? Okay, so thank you so much to all of you for being here and for your time. I think this is very much appreciated. Maybe to make a quick announcement, during the COP meetings, we are having a so-called NIP clinic. So we'll have a UNEP booth available at the ground floor, where we'll be there for a few hours during several days to reply to any other questions related to NIP, to just simply discuss and plan more on your future activities within this NIP work that just started. And we also invite you all. We'll have a side event on the launching of this Stockholm Convention Integrated Toolkit that will be on May 2nd in the evening slot, so from 6:15 to 7:45 p.m. And we would love to have you there present at the launching of the toolkit. So thank you so much to GGKP team. You are amazing, and looking forward for the next webinar, so to take it from where we left. Okay, so thank you so much.
Yes, so thank you, Mihaela. Thank you a lot. And just a final 1 minute to Miss Anna Berejani from Georgia.
I will try to be very quick, but not to talk very too fast to don't make life difficult for our translators. I would just like to thank you for organizing this amazing webinar. I want to thank all the hosts for having us. I want to thank Mihaela for giving us very good support and very nice presentation. I want to thank all the attendees of this meeting. And no, last and not least, I would like to thank our translators. I know that they are doing very difficult job, and without them, most of the meetings wouldn't be available to be held. So thank you again, and thank you all once more to allow me to speak on behalf of Georgia and to share our experience with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Ms. Anna Berjani. And we are wrapping up. So thank you, everyone, for participation. And
Thanks, everyone.
See you in May.
See you next week.
See
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye. Thank you so much.